And the Maliki school said nothing of the dog is najis. The dog is not najis, and its fur is not najis, and its saliva is not najis. Nothing is najis about the dog. Okay, Imam Malik, great Maliki scholars, what do you say about this hadith? That 7 times has to be washed or whatnot. The Malikis say, they respond to this in a number of manners. And by the way, there's a famous scholar in Morocco, Sheikh Saeed al-Kamali. Everybody, Arabs knows him. He's very world famous. He has a number of good videos about this issue. You can listen to him. And he's also beloved by the Athari school as well, because he's a very erudite scholar of that tradition. And so he brings evidences that are very in that genre. So Sheikh Saeed says, I'm taking from his video actually, that in his opinion, the correct opinion is that, this is again his opinion, that there is nothing najis about the dog. And he goes, what about this hadith? How do we respond? He gives 4 responses. And this is from earlier Maliki school. Number 1, he says that washing does not necessarily mean that it has to be najis. We should wash that which we might find disgusting, but it is not najis. So, for example, mucus. It is not najis by unanimous consensus of the ulama. But it is something, if we find it, we're going to wash it. So he said, just because we have to wash doesn't mean it is najis. That is the first point. Secondly, he says, by explicit Quranic testimony, the trained dog is allowed to hunt. And how does it hunt? With what does it hunt? The mouth. And its mouth is going to have saliva. And the saliva is going to be right on the animal. And the Sharia did not problematize that. And we don't have any text in the Sharia that says that, oh, make sure that you wash 7 times the body of the, even though yaqinan, there's going to be saliva on that animal. And by text of the Quran, that animal is halal if you say Bismillah when you send the dog. By the way, you have to say Bismillah, right? It's very explicit in the hadith, okay? فَذْكُرُوا اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. It's very clear. So the tasmiyah is mandatory. Okay, Zabi Hamid and whatnot. So this is point number 2. And that is that the fact that the trained dog is allowed to hunt, and the saliva is going to be mixed up, and the Sharia did not problematize that, indicates, according to the Maliki school, that the saliva is not najis. Point number 3, he said, Bukhari and Muslim have a hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu anh, that كانت الكلاب, that the dogs would come in and out of the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and no one would do anything about that. Now, this might shock many of us here. We have to understand rural Medina, very different society. It's not like closed doors and air condition and 5 doors to get in and out. It's just very primitive. And dogs were everywhere. And Ibn Umar is telling us that dogs would come in and out of this authentic hadith, Bukhari and Muslim, well known. Dogs would come in and out of the masjid, and nobody stopped them, put a barrier. They would be seen regularly inside the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if they were najis, they would not be allowed, or they would at least, just like when the Bedouin urinated, what did they do? They cleaned it, right? Ibn Battal said that the fact that the dogs are coming, Ibn Battal is a great author of hadith, scholar of hadith, died, don't quote me, 300 something. Ibn Battal says, the fact that the dogs would come and go to the masjid necessitates that they're going to be touching their nose because they sniff everywhere. And they're going to be drinking water and eating leftover foods because the masjid was a sleeping place for strangers and delegations. And they would eat in the masjid. And they would live in the masjid. And the Ahlul Suffah had an entire section of the masjid. If the dogs were impure, they would have been prevented from entering the masjids, because Muslims unanimously agree you cannot allow a najis to enter the masjid knowingly. Right? And the fact that they would come and go, as Ibn Umar says, indicates the repetitive nature of dogs entering and nobody forbidding them, which means that they were not najis al-ayn, najis lidatihi, end quote, okay? So this is another great scholar of early Islam saying this hadith shows that they didn't problematize dogs as being najis. And fourthly, Sheikh Saeed says that the fact that the Prophet ﷺ is saying wash it 7 times, the first with sand, clearly indicates this is not because of najasa. Because which one is more najis and disgusting? Human excrement, menstrual blood versus saliva of a dog. Which is more disgusting? It is the first. But we don't have to do that with the first, do we? We don't have to wash a vessel 7 times, the first of them with turab, for something which is unanimously more najis. Even if you said that saliva is najis, what is more najis than that is, you know what I'm saying. Yet we don't we're not commanded to do that. Hence, he says, and he quotes Ibn Rushd, the famous Ibn Rushd. And Ibn Rushd is a Maliki. Ibn Rushd, the famous philosopher, Averroes. Ibn Rushd, he wrote one of the greatest books of fiqh, Bidayat al-Mujtahid, the beginning of the Mujtahid. This book, if you master it, you're ready to do ijtihad. This book is Bidayat al-Mujtahid. Ibn Rushd was one of the great Maliki scholars of Andalus. He was the judge of Andalus as well, under the Muwahhidun, the Muwahhads. And Ibn Rushd, no, sorry, not under them, he was persecuted by them. Ibn Rushd wrote this book, and in it he says that the fact that we have to wash it 7 times indicates it's not because it is najis. There must be some medical reason. And Sheikh Saeed says this is because of bacteria, that the only way to eliminate the bacteria is because of this. So it's not najis, it is disgusting. And not every disgusting thing is najis. There's a difference between the two. Okay? Something can be disgusting to us, but it's not najis. And he is saying, or the Maliki school says, that's dog saliva. It's not najis in and of itself. So